give us the strength and the words to use that are not defensive, but they're given in respect of others and their feelings too. So be with us, guide us, and direct us so we go through it. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll turn it over to Kim now.
Okay. I want to make a couple of house announcements. You do have to share mics, but make sure that when you talk, you are talking into the mic like this, because we have Aaron and Karen on Zoom right now, and we want to make sure they can hear us. And we have an extra mic, so if we need to disperse, we can. I want to introduce the planning board members to the Board of Commissioners. We have Ms. Jean Casanave, right? Casanave. We have Lawrence Powers. We have Charlie Harper, Reed Johnson, Jason Hall. And then steering committee is Ms. Loretta Bird, Paul Boucher, Alan, staff member, and was had some input on the UDO, and then myself and Debbie, and then again Karen and Aaron are on Zoom to help. So you all have a very large packet in front of you. It consists of the memo that Aaron wrote on December the 22nd following a meeting that we had. This notes that she had changed the open space requirements for non-residential, the pedestrian side considerations, the building design standards were stricken from the text. Buffers, streets, and screenings have been modified. District boundary buffers have been replaced with perimeter buffer yards to address incompatible land uses by the existing use rather than district. Clarification was also included when buffers and screenings overlapped. The more stringent shall apply. So that basically took into account Articles 3 and 6. And when you go through this document, you can see where she struck those items that we just talked about, or that I just mentioned. And then this next little section, the next couple pages, she was asked right before she left to compare Benson's UDO with Johnston County's UDO, and that was presented to the board in February. So you have her findings of that as well. And that's kind of where staff has they've done what they've been asked to do, and so now the next step is to discuss the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board and the Steering Committee, who has been working on this for quite some time, to ensure that there's no other changes that anybody needs to see or wants to see of the UDO before we take it back to a public hearing, because it does have to go back before a public hearing again. It'll have to go before the Planning Board again, and then the Board of Commissioners again. So we just want to make sure when we do that process for a second time around that it goes through and there's no other questions. So, Aaron, Karen, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add. Just, it's nice to be back. And I can't see everyone, but it's nice to hear your voices.
Okay. So this is an open discussion meeting. So you oh, there you are.
I couldn't unmute myself. I'm sorry. I just want to say it's good to be back as well. I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope that the development ordinance can be revised and modified to everyone's standards, and can bring forth a document that will serve Benson. So I'm happy to be a part of this meeting this evening.
Thank you, Erin. So, like I was saying, this is a very open meeting. We're not in a formal setting because we want to be able to have open communication. So, anybody wants to speak up and ask questions or have suggestions, the floor is yours. Just make sure you talk into the mic.
You probably have to point them out one at a time so they'll talk. We'll let them go in line.
You want me to call them out?
That'll be fine.
Oh, Miss Jean, you want to go first?
Sure. I just wanted to be sure that this is the same document that we looked at January in our meeting, right? I mean, the changes that Aaron and Karen had made happened in December for us to talk about in January, right?
Yes, it should
Okay.
be, yes. So we presented the document as a whole to the board in October, and then we made changes in December. And yes, I think y'all did meet and she gave it back to y'all. So, and like I said, the only thing that got changed was Articles 3, 6, and 11.
3, 6, and 11, that's what
Yeah.
my notes say. Okay.
Jean, I would add that the changes that occurred between December 12th and December 28th did not go back before planning board.
Oh, there you
Those
go.
were made as a continuation between the hearing, because the meeting was continued on the 12th with the changes requested to be made. I think a portion of you were at that meeting, so you heard what that discussion was about, but I don't think we made a separate planning board meeting to
Okay.
discuss those
Okay.
changes.
Okay.
So we could go through what those changes were, if that's desirable. Because we have those in a PowerPoint, so I can share screen and we can just go through what those were.
Okay, thank you. My notes said that we removed open space requirements at Article 6, and we, Article 3, 6, and 11, there were some edits, and I think I was at that meeting you're talking about, Karen, so thank you. Yeah.
I'll just say I was just sworn in last month, so this is the first time I've actually had a chance to read all of this. So I'm going to listen, and we'll let you know if I have any questions.
I'm just coming back after a year off of the planning board, and this is my first meeting back. So I did have some experience with this before I left, but obviously it has changed probably a lot since then. So.
All right. My name's Reed Johnson, and I guess I will cut the pie first since everybody's passing it down the table. Basically, on the UDO, what do we necessarily, what right now would be the obstacle I'd like to discuss and what we're trying to overcome to get something down for us to have some type of policy in place that is basically just our structure of what Benson requires in order for you to come and participate in our town. And that's what I'm looking for. So with this UDO, so I don't really, I've kind of gone, I was on the steering committee, I can tell you guys, so I've been on that, I'm on the planning board, and with what's come to pass as far as the buffer and the boundaries, it looks like they've been fixed. That's kind of, so my question, I guess, so I can present an actual question is, what now do we need to discuss in order for us to get something in place to get this UDO passed? So I guess I don't necessarily need Karen and Aaron to go through everything itemized line by line, but I want to know what was important to us as a town for us not to get it passed. Obviously, I know the boundary was a big deal. I know we had a couple of things with the commercial, and we didn't like any building requirements on what they looked like. We didn't like any of that. And all that's been stripped from what I've gathered. I just want to clarify. And so basically my question is what do we need to look at to kind of make an executive decision on in order for us to get this document fixed to what we want. So that's just an open question. I'm at the point that I thought we kind of got it. I just want to, that's it. Not saying good, bad. I just don't necessarily know what all we need to discuss.
Has it been fixed?
It was.
Yeah, so we're mirroring the county right now.
What, no, we struck sorry. After the meeting on the 19th with Mr. Parker, we struck an article, we struck a lot from Article 6 and Article 3. So we now have non-residential open space, and Aaron will have to touch base on that. Pedestrian design considerations, we changed building design standards. That was completely stricken from the text, so that was actually Article 6. Buffers, street trees, and screening has been modified. District boundary buffers have been replaced with perimeter buffer yards. And then there was further clarification on buffers. So all that was fixed at when she did the memo on December 22nd. That was directly following the meeting that we had with Dale Parker. And then she came back in February and gave y'all the comparison of Johnston County. But y'all were given a comparison, and they're in the process of redoing their UDO right now. So what exactly do you want to mirror?
Well, we were looking at the buffer zones and.
Take the microphone, because they're on Zoom, so they're not going to be able to hear you. Sorry.
We were looking at, me and William, we were all looking at the buffers and the requirements, and a business going out to the county, if they wanted to come in town, depending on what size it was going to cost, for them to come in town would have been like $300,000 to $400,000 more compared to the county.
Okay. Aaron, do you want to address that? Or Karen?
It's hard, I couldn't really make out what he was saying. I noticed about the buffers, but can you repeat what he said? It was difficult for me to hear.
Tell me again, and I'll.
Okay, so where we looked at it, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, with the buffering, fencing and everything, it would cost a company to come into Benson compared to the county, depending on what size it was, it could cost them $300,000 to $400,000 more to come in city limits.
I don't know where those numbers came from or how those were obtained. I think that may have been a comment. So how accurate that is, I don't know. Of course, having buffering and standards to your site will add, some costs, but if it's that exact amount, I can't speak to that because prices change. It depends on the site, the plantings. There are a number of factors that could play into what that ultimate cost is. So that was brought up, but I'm not sure how hard and fast that number is, or if that is something that the town is, what priority is that the emphasis that the town will put on the cost of development for buffering. So that's something that is hard to say.
Can I just say something, please? Every town has buffering involved between zoning changes, residential, industrial, whatever, every town. I guess the question is, how bad does anybody want to come to the town, there's a benefit to that. They're close to the community, and they would have a better marketing presence, is just two things I can think of. If it costs a little more to be in the town, that's what their benefit, their value is of why they would want to come here. So that's just my thought.
I could add, I don't have a specific number either, or can speak to whether that is accurate. As Aaron said, it does depend on the type of buffering, it depends on the type of property as to, you know, the width of the buffer and how much that property, you know, is quote unquote worth. But also know that landscaping does add a benefit and a cost, and a price increase to certain properties. So it's very hard to say that there is a specific cost associated with that. And to Jean's point, that, there is also inherent benefit to being in the town versus not being in the town. But to answer your question, or to further elaborate on your things, the changes that were made to the ordinance were at the request of Mr. Parker, and those changes were to get away from the zoning district boundary and go to a perimeter buffer based on use. So none of the changes that have been made are making this more in line or less in line with Johnston County. So those changes were not made. And as has been said, that discussion occurred, at a meeting where Aaron presented those differences, but nothing has been touched since then. So I don't want you to think that the changes that are proposed or the changes that were suggested in December, those have not reflected anything to be more in line with Johnston County. And as everyone has mentioned, Johnston County is going through a revision of their zoning ordinance now. And I don't know what the ultimate outcome will be, whether those will be more strict or less strict. But these are, these were direct recommendations that were made, again, in reference to some of the meeting that was held in December. So if there is still that desire to move closer to Johnston County, we would have to take more of a look at what this is, at what those are, and how we could make that more in line with Johnston County. So if that is truly the concern, and that still is a concern, that you want to be closer aligned with Johnston County, we can do that, or those changes could be made, but just realize that whenever Johnston County passes their new ordinance, and you want to be in line with them again, you're going to be playing catch up again, which is fine, because again, the zoning ordinance is meant to be changed and updated accordingly. So we could do that, but just know that that's not currently been completed.
So I think my question is, if we've already changed the buffer requirements based off of use, and we go to the way Johnston County does it, theirs is based off of zoning, correct?
They have zoning / use.
Okay.
So it's, in some cases it's a use, some cases it's a zoning district. The biggest difference is they have additional plantings, but they have less of a width. So their widths are less. They're either 10 or 15 feet, but they require more plantings. So additional plantings over and above what Benson requires.
So-
as proposed. So there's the trade-off.
So is that exactly what y'all, so that changes how we've currently written it to go strictly on use? Do you want it to go back and reflect both use and zone, like the county's is?
Well, the county is kind of a mute point right now, because they've made the decision a month ago that they're gonna redo their UDO.
Correct.
And how that'll come out, I don't know, but they're getting their steering committee put together.
So that's the question, though. We don't want to wait. It took us 15 months. We don't want to wait 15 months for them to redo their UDO. So how do we want to move forward right now with the buffers? Do we want to keep it as it stands currently with the changes, how we do it based on uses? Or do we want to do a mixed buffering based on uses and the zoning? Like the county does, knowing that when they're done in 15 months, we might have to go back and change it.
Well, let me ask you, if we done it one way, could we amend it later? Or
You
is
can,
that something?
yes, ma'am, you can always amend it.
Okay.
Is there anything in the proposed UDO that you do not like with the changes that we made in December and that were presented at the December 28th meeting? Is there, something specifically with that?
Well,
Yeah,
in
no changes.
December, no, you go.
Use the mic.
I don't have any particular changes I wanted to make. I made my long diatribe the day after the meeting. Everybody, all the commissioners, they know the deal. The question I've had, I said it in public, so I won't say it right now. And all you other people are going to go, no. But I was worried the whole time about we're going to not be competitive with Dunn, Four Oaks, and Johnston County. When there's a chance for Industry A to come right here, go 30 feet and be in our land or their land, I didn't want our requirements to be more stringent than their requirements, so that they would choose them rather than us. And so I get that there's reasons to be in town and reasons not, but I wanted to make sure we were there. So I still had, and I told people then that it might be the dumbest thing you ever heard, but and I was waiting for somebody to explain to me why it was dumb, and that was that I don't understand why we can't say, if you like Johnston County's industrial requirements better, you can pick theirs. I don't get what's the deal with that. And, and they said, well, there might be problems that come up, and I see that. And, they said, well, all they got to do if the person, the citizen has a problem, all he's got to do is come through and go through the hearing and all that stuff. And that was easy peasy. And then I said, well, what if we have a problem? Why don't we just do that? Just go through the hearing and make an amendment. They said, well, that'd be too tough. So, I think, I still think I'm waiting for somebody that knows more than I do to explain to me why that's not a good idea.
Max, the town you have many times done a text amendment. The town can change their UDO.
That's what I think too. I think it'd be easier for us as the town to do it than
You
the
can
individual.
always do that. And most of the time, it is the town on its own accord or its own initiative that undertakes to do a zoning or a text amendment to the UDO.
Well, that's what I think that adds to my point, which is it's easy for us to make an amendment when we see something wrong. It's much more difficult for a citizen to do it.
Yeah, it's the same process, same legal procedure. But I think, not speaking for you, Max, but maybe your point is, or also your point is, it's more difficult for a citizen to undertake something rather than the town. Although there have been situations that I've been involved in where something was pointed out as an issue with the UDO, and the town staff decided to, based on something that was some feedback that came from a citizen or a developer or something, where the town said, you know what, we agree with you, we'll ask for the board to change it. We won't make you come before them and be the one proposing it.
I don't see what's the wild, crazy idea about that, because we're talking about a 20-foot buffer with more trees versus a 30-foot buffer with less trees. Pick one, same thing. It's not like we're comparing it to the wild Mad Max wasteland beyond Thunderdome. We're just, it's kind of the same thing. And so I don't see where we really hit a disaster. If a builder or a developer came up and said, this is Johnston County's, I'd rather do it this way, we go, okay. I don't get what we're trying to, are we trying to be, why we're trying to be more stringent than the county. And that might be a good reason for it. I'm not saying I'm arguing that. I'm saying I don't know.
We've talked about this. My only concern about sort of pegging it to the county is they can change their ordinances and they have to go through almost the exact same procedure that we do to do so.
Mhm.
And we'll have to number one, we'll have to constantly monitor that. Number two, I would have concerns, and although this may be just sort of legal procedural kind of issues that I'm throwing roadblocks in front of you, suggestion, although, because it may work as one of those things other than, you know, the technicalities of the thing, but if you say, you can do what they do, you haven't passed that law, right? So you've said you can do what they do, but you haven't defined what that is. You need to define what can and can't be done, what the procedure is to ask for an exception to that, or, you know, all that. That's why the UDO is huge.
Right.
It's your longest single ordinance,
Mhm.
because it's got all of it speaks to all these different things. And you can always go back and change it. There's procedures for getting some, getting a variance, or, getting some kind of, getting around something, or say if you're a unique situation, or so getting some leeway. But to just say what they do, you can do what they do.
What
You
if-
haven't, but
what
you
if we-
haven't passed that, and it's sort of circular.
What if we compromise and say, you've got to go by ours, but if you see one of our local, like Johnson County, let's just take them and say, they do it this way, you can come before somebody and say, I want to do it this way. If Johnson County does it this way, would you consider that?
Well, it would have to be, theoretically, you could do it, but you'd have to do a text amendment that would then apply to everybody. So what you couldn't do is say, you have to obey everybody. Anybody who wants to develop land in our area, our corporate limits at ETJ, you got to go by this rule book. But then when one of them comes up and says, I don't want to go by that, I want to go by this less restrictive one that I like better, you go, okay, we'll vote to approve that. You end up in hot water with
Yeah,
that.
that makes sense.
But you could say, you know what, we like that rule better too, we'll change that entire section of that code and we'll match what the county does. And I think there would be some of that periodically. Not so much even matching what the county does, but just understanding that maybe this rule that we passed, maybe it doesn't actually work exactly like we like it, and this particular applicant's come up and brought that to our attention, now we need to change it. Not so much to keep it in line with Johnson County, but to keep it in line with what we want. What works better for the people that we're doing business with, or doing business here.
Well, I think another thing we were worried about too is that you have this developer going to build this factory or whatever. He's looking at Benson, the county, whatever. These other, they know the UDO. They go looking at it. They already know what their cost is. And then they say, oh, it's going to cost me $300,000 more to build it in Benson. They're out. We never even know about it. You know, that's what we were concerned about. That's the reason why Max was wanting to put that in there as far as the county.
Kimberly, when over these 15 months, the standards here that have changed, I have to assume there was a comparison, right, to the county, surrounding municipalities, whatever and all this. Like, I don't understand at this point why this conversation is even happening when it's at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Because right now, we're already saying that it can be amended on a case-by-case basis. So I think that just hearing what everyone is saying, I think we need to move beyond this particular piece of the equation. Because I just don't see the obstacles and the comparison and contrast to other towns around here. I can't say the word municipalities for some reason right now. As a justification for what Benson does and what its offerings are to incoming businesses coming in. So I don't agree with that. So
We won't compare to municipalities around us.
Karen, can you name the municipalities that you did look at during the study?
Yes, so when I looked at the Johnson County's ordinance, it wasn't a significant difference from what and Johnston County had some of that as well. So it wasn't, anything extremely out of line with what Johnston County had. I think, Gene, you mentioned that, district boundary buffers are, they are pretty much standard in site development when you have, incompatible uses, when you have industrial versus residential. That's usually going to give you your biggest and widest boundary buffering, because those uses are so much different. And the closer the uses are, the less the buffering requirements are. So overall, they had those same standards. So if you're saying, is it more stringent? The county has different land use types than Benson would, than a municipality would, a town would. So you would expect to see some of those factors place into why they have their standards. Most of their roads are on NCDOT right-of-ways. And so, there's other things at play as well that can factor in what their standards are versus what Benson would have as well. But overall, you're going to have some type of buffering standards. And I believe what we proposed was a little more up to date, more consideration for the use versus just the district. And I think there may even be an opportunity to even refine it from what I'm hearing from concerns from the council that, there's, if it's industrial and it's adjacent to vacant land, or if it's agricultural land, that you can, maybe play around with that a little bit more. So I think the framework is there, but crafting it to specifically what Benson values, and what Benson wants to see as far as development and how it relates to the surrounding area, the surrounding uses, and how Benson grows. I think that filling in the blanks for Benson, to me, seems like where we may be.
Well, I just want to try to clear the air a little bit, because we're a little bit off track. The way we got to where we are today is because when we had the public hearing, we had some very distinct objections to some of the things that was in, not the residential necessarily, but in the commercial part of it. And that's why some of the berms and all those things that's built around houses so you can't see the business, it's done in a lot of different ways in different places. This, what you see here in this packet, was built off of Roseville and Wake Forest. And there is much difference as us as a Chinaman and a Johnson County farmer. And we had rather spend another day getting everybody's input, and that's why we're here tonight, is to know what you think and what is it about this you like and what you don't like, most especially what you don't like, so that when we get back to the public hearing again, which we got to do, then we won't come to the same place we are, that these things hadn't been changed. So what I'm hoping that'll happen is that when we finish here tonight, the things that have been brought up that you think need to be changed gets designated in a way that it has been done. And there's some people tells me that the things that were recommended that they said they would change hadn't all of them been changed. So we don't have the updated copy to deal with.
You do. You have the update. Yes.
I don't. I got the original one. I didn't get one.
Well,
it's updated.
hand me that. You all have the updated copy tonight. You have the updated copy, and you had the updated copy at the December 28th meeting, because she gave you guys 3, 6, and 11 that were struck, that she had changed.
You got to remember, in the meetings, that I don't have opportunity to say anything. It's against the law for me to. But in this meeting, it's completely different. I can't try to lead the group in any direction that they go, so I stay quiet. But we need for everybody to make their opinion here tonight and not go out tomorrow on the street and say, oh, I wish we'd have done this and that. That's all I'm looking for.
Okay. All right, Karen, you can go now.
I'm sorry. So the clarification was, again, we went to planning board in October, November, and got, let me pull up my meeting actual times. But we had gotten approval from the planning board, or recommendation of approval. We went on December 12th to planning commission. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We went to the board of commissioners. My apologies. On the 12th, again, the conversation came up at that public hearing regarding the buffers. We worked very diligently and made the changes, the recommended changes, prior to the meeting being continued December 28th. So there was absolutely, those recommendations were made, those changes were made. We made red lines. Those were submitted, and everyone had those in front of them at that December 28th meeting. Again, even with those changes, it still got, turned down and denied. So we're looking now, we're no different than we were on December 28th. There have been no changes made since then. So we need direction from everyone tonight as to what you want to do. Do you want, it appears or sounds like there may not be enough information comparing it with Johnston County or with the surrounding communities. If you want that information, we can provide it. The thing is, do you want to hold up the entire process of getting the rest of the ordinance done just on buffers? You can go back, you can submit the buffers the way they are and change it in a month or two once you've had some further study. You can hold off approving the whole ordinance until you solidify your buffer concerns. But you've done a lot of work, you've paid a lot of money to have this ordinance written, and I would like to see you move forward tonight with some very specific direction for us or for whomever to work on fixing what is still problematic. So if you don't have enough information to make that decision, please let us know what it is so we can provide you with more information. And if that's a more detailed study, sure. When we did this ordinance to clarify, did we look at Wake Forest and Roseville? Yes. We just looked at those as points of comparison. We looked at Fayetteville, we looked at Clayton, we looked at Dunn, we looked at other towns in the area and Selma to get ideas of what theirs were. Now, do I remember what they are off the top of my head? No, but we did check them at the time to make sure they were in line. We put Clayton, Fayetteville, Roseville, and Wake Forest into a memo that responded to to the concerns of the board, and those were just saying that other towns require greater buffers than what Benson is proposing.
Yes, those are in the triangle, yes, those are heavier developed, areas. And if that's not what Benson wants, then that's fine. That wasn't what we were trying to say. We weren't saying, we want you to be the next Roseville. We weren't saying that at all. If that's not what you want, that's absolutely, we're not gonna provide that to you. We wanna provide you, we wanna get this approved, and we want you to have what you want in your ordinance. We're not trying to shove anything down your throat, we're not trying to do that. It is literally our pleasure to provide you with what you want and the information you need. So if there's anything we can do to help you get this approved, that's what we're here for.
And if I may add, I have the comparison of the presentation that I gave you all in February. So it was mentioned that the commercial industrial buffering was the most notable of concern. And so if you have the proposed, what's presented to you, what was proposed, what's current in our UDO, and what Johnston County has. So if you look specifically at industrial, automotive, major utility, solar farm, anything that is adjacent to any type of residential accommodation, a civic, public uses, office, mixed-use retail, that's going to have a Class C buffer. If it's adjacent to the same use, there's no buffer required. If it's adjacent to a cemetery, vacant land that's in a residential district, then it'll have a Class B buffer. If it is vacant land in an office residential or a non-residential district such as neighborhood business or highway business or industrial, it will have a Class A buffer. Now if you look on our current boundary buffer table, if you are in an I-1 or I-2 in the industrial, it goes by district. So everything that's adjacent to industrial, I-1 or I-2, up until B2 is a Class C buffer. If it's B3 or what was proposed to be changed to the highway business district would require a Class B buffer. So you see right there, we tried to make it a little more nuanced and account for the use. And if it was adjacent to industrial, it still didn't have that buffer and requirement. And so Johnston County, when you look at theirs is broken down into major resident. If you look at industrial, again, residential is going to be a Class C buffer. That's going to be your most intense. If it's adjacent to a use or zoning that's office industrial, it's a Class B. It still requires, and that's where I say that we even refined ours a little further, because Johnston County's industrial to industrial boundary buffer still requires a Class A buffer, whereas we do not require a buffer if it is adjacent to an industrial, automotive, ag level 2 district. There's no buffer. But if it is adjacent to vacant land that's in the I-1 or the I-2 district, it will require a Class A buffer. So that was, kind of a highlight of what was changed. And like I said, I think we have a solid framework that tried to address the concerns that were raised regarding buffering, and it being just straight by district and that Class C, across the board, and not really mindful of the uses. Now, it's a separate conversation, I think, if, well, we want to save developers money, then you may have to say, well, we don't want any buffers. Is that the most important thing in this conversation? Saving developers money or having sites that are developed that are mindful of the surrounding area and how it fits in, and having offering between incompatible uses, but at the same time being mindful of those like uses and being a little more nuanced. So I think really that, to me, that sounds like the question that needs to be answered, and to really look at what is being proposed and to really parse out what you don't like about that so that it can be modified.
What do you say, Loretta?
Thanks a lot.
I will admit I don't understand a lot of this, but what I want to say is that our UDO should be business friendly, whether it be buffers or signs or whatever. As a Chamber of Commerce person, I'm all about businesses, and I'm also about growth, but growth in a intelligent way. So someone else will have to review this closer and help make the decisions, like some of these two guys sitting here that are builders and they understand. And so whatever y'all decide, I will, unless it hurts businesses, I will go along with it.
Paul? Thanks for coming, Alan.
I know that obviously the large building part of this was a major point, and I'm somewhat of the belief that I think the growth will come. The growth's going to come to this area because this is it's a beautiful area to be in. And I don't just mean locally Benson, but I mean as a whole. North Carolina is an area that everybody wants to move to and live in. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of growth and opportunity that's right here. But although we can respect and involve the developers' decisions, I do think that we need to make sure that what we're bringing in is smart growth, and it's growth that fits within our community. I don't know that we're totally finished with the large building side of it, but I think one of my questions is probably more related to striking all of Article 6. And is there any parts of Article 6 that we've incorporated anywhere else? Because, I mean, if you look at everything that's been stricken in Article 6, I mean, there's a lot of valuable portions related to sidewalks, related to signage, downtown signage, trying to be able to make the aesthetics of the downtown area look greater, requesting that building frontages not be boarded up with just straight wood. So my personal concerns are there.
So building standards and Aaron, jump in at any point. But that was requested of us to remove because I think probably cost had a little bit to do with it. But there was mentioned that this is going to be everywhere in town, so downtown district included, and I know that is a sticking point for a lot of us that are trying to build downtown, because you want to have some sort of standard down there. But it was stricken from this, and that was at a request.
open space requirements, anything that really was related to, standards, development standards, again, and so some of that was wrapped up into that sidewalks, building, transparency and articulation and, facades, things like that.
Part of six.
That was the biggest concern, and again, it boiled down to cost and saving, developers money, if they chose to, to develop land in Benson. And I believe that was what the overall perspective was, that these standards are too restrictive and will force developers to choose their sites elsewhere because Benson is asking for too much. And so all of those standards that were sort of, building related, the width of sidewalks, non-residential open space, those were the things. But I believe some of that, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the entire Article 6 was stricken.
No, not the entire one. So 156, 606, pedestrian design considerations, that was all taken out. 156, 607, building design standards was all removed. I'm still flipping through myself.
That did include, building maintenance in your downtown, having boarded up buildings.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. You've removed everything that talks about just keeping your buildings painted and looking nice. All that has been removed. Also, let's see. Also, you've let's see. There was another place. It just has alarmed me. You've removed the section about missing and broken windows, telling them they have to replace those. You've removed the section that no vending machines shall be placed on any sidewalk, lot, porch, or if you do that, we could end up with vending machines downtown in front of buildings.
Absolutely. And so the goal was, again, when we first brought the proposed UDO to the board on December 12th, and we had the public hearing, and we went back and we met with Commissioner Neighbors and Dale Parker, and we had, this bulleted task that we would remove certain areas to be more palatable and bring it back on December 28th. Keeping in mind that, we don't want to necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that section can be removed and still move forward with a unified development ordinance, and then go back and specifically look at the section in Article 6 that was removed, so that we can really look at it deeper, see what kind of standards would be acceptable for Benson, and to do a text amendment addressing that particular section. And so that was initially what we thought, would be the way forward. conjunction with, you know, the Board of Commissioners, a task force, someone to research and to craft something that may be more fitting to the town, or to not have any of those standards at all, which is what we have today with our current UDO.
I have a question. Based on the meeting we had where we denied it, why is it all of Article 6, like windows shall be cleaned, broken glass replaced, and obstructions removed that are not part of the current window display or sign? This shall not apply to devices, blah, blah, blah. Why was that taken out? Why were parts of the Article 6 taken out, like broken windows and things like that? I don't really understand that.
I think you were asking why certain parts of Article 6 were taken out and not all of it?
Yeah, he was saying like the broken windows and stuff. Building design standards.
It was all under one particular section.
Yeah.
Of Article 6, so those broken windows, that all related to building standards. And so it was all under that one section. And so, for the sake of time, because we went from December 12th to December 28th, to bring something back in 2 weeks. So instead of trying to go through each section within that particular section of Article 6, we took everything that was in that particular section out, with the idea that it could be reviewed further at a later date, and we could move forward at least with, at least a substantial, acceptable development code, and this one particular section could be further reviewed. But so it fell all within the same section. So we just took that entire section out because it had so much concern.
Yeah, the biggest concern was the building materials, that they wanted to be able to build a corrugated metal building.
Mm-hmm.
And that corrugated I think it was corrugated metal was one of the, not allowed, or I think we suggested brick. It was brick. It was something having to do with
The facade.
I think that was me, and I asked at that time, like,
building that was allowed to be used.
it seems like I remember asking at that time, was that like if we were picking, you said no metal, no sheet metal or something like that on the building, or corrugated metal. What I asked, I think, what if like it was a Harley store or something like that had 10 on the building? Would we have to be that precise to keep them from doing things like that? I was saying I didn't think we should get in design, but I didn't mean to cut the whole section out.
Well, and I'm pulling up the email that William Neighbors sent everybody on the 19th after our meeting with Dale, and Article 6, his statement to the board at that point was striking Article 6, building standards, until standards can further be evaluated, felt the proposed standards may be too immense and cost ineffective to attract commercial development. So that came directly out of the meeting as well. So not necessarily from your statement.
All right, good.
So all of that fell within that section, I believe.
So I think a question that I have is, can we do building design standards for like our downtown district, and then do something separate for like industrial or commercial outside of the downtown district?
You certainly can.
Would that be something that everybody would be amenable to?
I would, because if you don't have some guidelines for downtown, you think we've got problems now, you can see them developing.
Well, and I have an ordinance that William and I and Aaron have talked about this now probably almost a year, but I have an ordinance that eventually I want to bring to the board that puts the downtown businesses, it basically somewhat fines them if they don't do something with the building. Like, it can't just sit vacant. It's a vacant ordinance.
Basically a tax, a fee.
Right.
Just let it sit there and rot.
But I need this to back it up. Yeah.
Right, you gotta have
I'm, just recently, I left the North Carolina Main Street Conference. I had gone with Tyler from here, from town. And we spent 4 days in downtown Goldsboro, which is not a place that I would have ever thought that we're going to go and hang out for a week. And it was absolutely gorgeous. The conference was awesome. The experience was great. But there was a lot of things that when we would raise a question, the answers were some of the things that we've stricken here. And the problem is that when you look at it and you say, ooh, putting in this sidewalk's going to cost a developer more money. And I can speak from that side of it, because, I mean, I'm the one that's building the house that's going, crap, I got to put a sidewalk in front of it. But that is the time to do it, and that is the most reasonable time to do it. I mean, it drives me crazy every time I ride past the McDonald's and the Taco Bell here that have both went through and did major renovations to them, and it's like it would have just taken a small section of sidewalk to be able to connect all of the sidewalk there in that area. And even down Johnson Street, when we were building some of the houses down Johnson Street, I wanted something to be able to require that we had to put the sidewalks in, but it really wasn't where it was, we're putting one in, but then the next contractor's not having to put one in where he builds a property at. And so I really think that, I mean, that is a small price to pay when you really start taking it into consideration, especially when you're pouring concrete all the way out to the curb anyway. You're already taking out a large section of it. I'm sure there's other guys that would beat me up over that and say, no, this is additional money and it's affecting their bottom line, and I get it. But ultimately, though, I think some of these things that we need to take into consideration is the beautification to our downtown. And again, going back to Goldsboro, I was amazed at some of the things that we've seen, and one of them was a question that I actually raised on one of the walking tours we were doing is, how do you guys keep from having people just use your downtown stores as storage? And they're like, oh no, we actually just have an ordinance against that doesn't allow people to just use these downtown buildings for storage, and it's it makes all the difference in the world. But I can tell you why it became important to them, because they basically built a beautiful city hall and it backed up to a whole row of buildings that were dilapidated and being used for storage. So that's where they got started with it. But
And I think too, Debbie just pointed out, there's a concern also when you take out the pedestrian crossings. I don't know that continues to be ADA compliant if you take that out. And you want to, we just had an ADA compliance plan done last year, and you don't want to mess that up, right? Because we got to have that. We have to have ADA compliance. So I'm getting a general consensus that we revisit the building standards and do something specifically for the downtown district, and then something different, maybe not as stringent in the other commercial areas, commercial industrial areas. Is that a consensus?
Well, we got one more that didn't get a shot.
Oh, I know. I'm going to let him speak, but I feel like we're moving on this one, so I want to make sure I want to get it. Right, progress. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like that's a So that's one thing, Karen, that make that note, and that will be something we revisit for sure.
So, Kim, are you saying that you're putting the whole Article 6 back in and picking out the individual pieces that are not?
No, I think what we're going to do is do a downtown District 1, so we don't lose what we're trying to do in downtown as far as revitalization and building that back up, and then we'll take a closer look at the commercial industrial side of it. Maybe it won't be as stringent, but we'll have two separate things for us to look at.
And since we're talking about sidewalks, is it still in here that they can, developer or whatever, can pay a fee in lieu of sidewalks still?
Well, it was,
They could before, but we'd have to vote on it to do it.
you had to have a waiver.
yeah, but
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to approve the waiver. I mean, keep that in mind too.
The problem with that is that was what they used to be able to keep from putting sidewalks in at the McDonald's
Yeah.
years ago, and they're still not there.
And keep in mind, I mean, I know sidewalks are a wonderful thing, but they're also a liability, and it costs the town a lot of money, because we have to go in and shave them down. We've been sued over them and everything, so. So
We
no,
have to
it's one of them things you just
Keep a
gotta balance
maintenance.
it out.
Yeah, we gotta keep a maintenance plan on it, yeah. All right. Jason?
My first question, everything that was a concern got addressed, right,
Mhm.
from the meetings?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. On the sidewalks, you made a very good point. We have to maintain them. Everybody's been down Church Street. Lawrence can attest to this. The sidewalk at my house is a liability. So if we've got a maintenance plan, are we following it?
No, I said we need a maintenance plan.
Good.
But
So
I'll
we
look
do
at your
need-
sidewalk.
And
But-
we need funding for it.
Well, I won't touch on that one. My other big question Reed asked already, how are we going forward? Rather than going in circles. But Loretta and Paul had good points. Our downtown district looks rough. We don't need to scratch the whole Section 6. We need the windows to be replaced. We need to bring the businesses in. If we don't have a decent looking downtown district, it doesn't matter how lenient our UDOs are, people aren't going to want to come here. But at the end of the day, my question is, how do we move forward? We've made more progress in the last 35 minutes than we made since November.
I don't know if probably to move forward, I don't know if we need to pass this as it is and then take a deeper dive and go through Article 6. The buffers are just, on the buffers as far as the commercial, wait till the county finishes their UDO, see what it looks like.
But my problem, everybody keeps reverting back to waiting for the county.
Right.
We know how long these things take.
No, this is gonna pass it. It will
They
be
won't take 15 months, I can tell you
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's gonna pass it. This UDO will be in effect, and then take a deeper dive into Article 6, and then we can come back with
But
amendments.
before we pass it, as like she said, we need to make sure it's ADA compliant with the sidewalk stuff. And we need to look at putting some of Article 6 back in, I would think.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We'd take a deeper dive in Article 6, bring back amendments, and pass amendments on that.
What was the holdup with whoever else was against, wanted Article 6 out? What was the deal? Why was Article 6 taken out in its entirety of this section?
Because William, isn't that what you just read?
Yeah, that's what I just read. The standards may be too immense and cost ineffective to attract commercial development. But I think that statement was made so we could go back and further evaluate it. But it was, I think, the thought process during that meeting, because of who we were in the meeting with, it was more of a broad spectrum, and the downtown district wasn't a concern. But there is a concern of the downtown district. I mean, we hear it every day. So I think that we can go back and amend that prior to having it approved.
Can we end the modification, like end the passing of this tonight as he's recommending?
So we can't pass it tonight
Okay.
anyway.
But I mean, like, when it
Yeah.
goes through, can we stipulate a short time frame at which we need to actually just come back and talk about just 6, because it can be circumvented very quickly, to not meet any of these standards by a business. You're leaving a huge hole.
Yeah?
Why couldn't you put Article 6 back in and then go back and start
and-
studying it?
and
Just put the whole
revise
thing
it.
back in as it is, and then start working on it and address Max's concerns and everything else. That way, because if you take it all out and then you're going to put it back in later, you've just created a loophole.
We created a loophole.
And I don't agree. I don't agree with your statement, Mayor. I think it'll get done.
Well, that is true.
What?
He's been around
exactly what we were talking about, is take it out and then take a deep dive on it and bring it back in pieces.
But what happens in the meantime?
Right.
That was gonna be my question too, as far as like.
Oh, you're gonna leave in there what you need to.
While we're waiting.
You said you wouldn't have a rule about it, so you have a rule about it, do what you want.
Absolutely.
Well, and here, I was
May
gonna
not
say,
get done
so I'm
either way.
about to apply for a permit to build a building into ETJ, and it's gonna be a metal building, it's gonna be, I don't know, 6,000 square foot metal building, and if you take that out, and I come and apply, and then there's no laws for me that Benson has for what Reed Johnson can and can't do, and it's on my property, and it's out in front of the schoolhouse, and I'm technically in the county, but I'm in the ETJ, but if you don't have something on the books for me to have to go by, then it's just kind of whatever I want to build out there is what I'm getting at, is what we're talking about, right? If we take 6 out.
Wild West.
It would be under what's there now, though.
It's not allowing anybody to build steel buildings is crazy.
Not if it's approved.
If it gets approved, it'll be as it stands.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if they approve it in
So
2
you
weeks,
have,
though.
You have something called permit choice. So if, let's say,
Well, that's what I meant, in 2 weeks, or
there-
whenever you approve it.
submit your application to, for a site plan, or development, and in the meantime, before you have your day before the board for approval, and you submit it under the current code, and in the meantime, the ordinance changes, you will have permit choice, and you will be able to, as an applicant, choose to remain under the code that was in effect when you submitted your application, or apply the standards of the code, of the newly adopted code, that changed in the midst of your application approval.
What's wrong with steel building?
I'm building a steel building.
I think it's about the craziest thing I ever saw, is to say that you can't build a steel.
And I don't think,
Just for clarification again, the architectural standards are only applicable to the frontage road. So it's just the facade treatment, it's not what the building is actually made of.
so 3 wall,
Literally just the facade.
right.
But that was removed, so it's not in there, but I know that caused a lot of stink, but I don't think people understood what it was. It was just the building facade that's facing the street has to have some architectural standards and can't be, that's where there was a metal restriction.
So
it's just putting up a front on the building.
So the standard didn't say you couldn't have a metal building. You can have a metal building, but you want a facade on it. So you're gonna, like Dollar General, they have, it's a metal building or however it is, but the front of it's brick.
When you're up that way, stop by Wilson Mills and look at
If I could
their
say
whole
something, please.
complex.
And I say this with all due respect and love for Benson. I know I'm not there anymore, but we're talking about the downtown. And in my experience, personally, just being in Benson and talking with developers and people that have chosen to move to Benson, they were driving down from Maine to Florida and they stopped in Benson. Our downtown is our crown jewel, and it's historic. Yes, we need to maintain it and preserve it and to continue to have a thriving downtown, but we also want said, I say that with all due respect and love.
Ms. Holly, you
agree.
want to say anything?
Well, back in December, I made a motion to have this approved.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was not approved, and I'm like the gentleman on the left over here to my left. I wanna know what we need to do to get it approved. What are the specifics that you're looking for, or we are looking for? That's what I wanna know.
And I think from what I'm gathering, buffering is still an issue. Yes, no? Yes, from Dean. Well, we have to address it in here, but like that needs to be, so you want industrial to mimic particularly the county. So, okay, that, check, I can, but I think you do it now, and then when they change it, we reevaluate. So, we got that, and then we got the building standard concern on this end in regards to the downtown district. Is that it, though? Like, I want to make sure if I go back to Karen and I say, okay, it's going to take us 30 days to make this change, then we're going to have a public hearing and then bring it back to everybody. Is there anything else that's going to be underlying that's going to pop up in 30 days that I'm going to have to go back and revisit again?
So
I also,
I was going to say 7. We haven't discussed 7, but there's a lot of 7 that was struck.
For signage? Okay. So let's go to 7.
also, Kimberly, we can technically amend this at any
You can
BOC meeting if it gets brought to it, and
Yep.
then okay, so like this is.
Yes, it could, this is not, and I think that has to be very stressed. This is a living, breathing document. It can be changed with a text amendment if somebody submits for it. Blake Denning submitted for a text amendment 2
And
months ago.
I agree with Loretta, though. I'd rather it be surgically done in that manner versus a whole leg taken off.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I think that I'm kind of saying now, like, let me go back and fix building design standards so it can be approved and not have it just completely out of there or completely in it where everybody's unhappy with it. Let's fix the districts. Let's fix the building design standards. I think that's something that Karen and me and Debbie and the steering committee can get done fairly quickly, hopefully, and then move forward.
Well, just put 6 back in as it was. And
Right.
then we'll start, that's exactly what Charlie, and then we'll start chiseling it
Right.
out.
Yes. So let's go to 7. Does everybody have Article 7 up? Aaron, do you need Article 7?
Yes. I do. Let me see. Was there any changes? I don't recall us making any changes in Article 7.
The whole thing is struck out.
Off-premise signs are gone.
All right, I'm gonna send it to you. I'm pulling it up now.
As a committee, I don't think we talked a lot about that.
Changes were made to the articles and were tracked until a certain date. And we accepted all the changes.
So I
We
made,
would know that nothing new was made.
So-
Everything new would have been changed.
what I probably printed today was that change, those changes that were made. But still look at it and make sure.
Yeah, we stopped tracking changes on, or we accepted all the changes we had made on 11/28. That was the last version I had. 11/29, I'm sorry.
Sandra hadn't had a chance to talk. Why don't we let her talk?
Hold on, we're looking at signs right now, Mayor. Give us 1 second. Do you have it, Aaron?
Did you just email it to me?
Yeah.
Okay, let me pull it up. Yes, I have it. Thank you.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, Kimberly.
That's something that's new that
I didn't see all that stripped out last time.
Yeah.
but
Are you looking at,
about signage.
go down, Aaron, to, hold on, I just changed mine, to wall
Wall
signs.
signs,
That's
letter
where you
C.
start seeing the
Well-
markouts.
Again, Kimberly, if we pass this like this, the next day you can literally put up
Anything, anywhere.
Whatever you
on
want.
the wall. Yeah, it's, I mean, this.
Who did all those scratch outs?
Well, I think that's what Karen was saying. These were things that were done throughout the process, and I probably just sent you guys the revision, the one that I had with markups.
Yeah, I think this may just be,
It's just formatting.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
We
mean,
didn't make any changes to it.
I can send you all the docu. Yeah, it's just the strikeouts. Yeah, it's where they've made edits.
I was like, man.
My heart started to
I literally, we're gonna let the people go crazy on us on the
Do you want me to
side.
change, do you want me to share the screen?
Yes. Yes, please. That was the what is it?
That big old billboard up there.
Who's doing the work?
I got that bag and all.
I
see you, dude.
Put it
Y'all
over
would
the
love my
top.
son.
That was a messenger issue. That was on me. I'm sorry.
All right.
I was in the process of printing stuff.
Apologize if these changes were not accepted correctly,
So there's,
but
there you go.
it's just, is there something specific you wanted to look at?
Can y'all see that okay? Okay.
Oh, that's what, the charts.
It's, the charts are towards the back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
just need to make sure all the stuff before that isn't struck.
Yeah, I just gave them.
Karen, everything outside the charts, the actual text,
He's on your.
that's what's stricken on our,
Yeah,
Like this
right
part
there.
of the chart?
Okay, it's not, yeah.
Oh,
All the language, yeah.
156,708, not the chart, the
It
actual,
started at wall signs and
or 706. So
Mm-hmm.
you gotta go back further than that.
Dude,
we need some page numbers.
yeah, it doesn't have page numbers yet.
so that's the accepted version right there.
Mm-hmm.
Then all these strikeouts are between that and
Mm-hmm. They are.
so all of this stuff is still gone.
Karen, it's the, like the sign area.
Unless it's in a different order on there.
Up here, that area's up here.
Yeah, higher.
Scroll up, yeah.
There we go.
Not before. This is
All
here.
of this is struck out and we're converting off that.
I think that part was-
She's
No.
up there.
That part's not.
That's not struck out.
No, it's actually
Keep going
below,
up.
it's below it.
Where it says
Keep going
wall,
down.
It says wall. Oh, no, she's going way down.
No, there you are.
Karen,
Now go
change-
back up.
Karen, change yours to all markup on the review side. That's what they're looking at. There you go.
And there was a lot of
She's still too far
formatting
down.
that was involved with the,
Yes.
with the signage, section because of the graphics and, just the formatting. So it looks like there was a lot of it that was stricken, but it really wasn't. It just looks like that because there was so much involved with getting it just right as far as formatting, but, I don't think. there
It starts on page 9.
sensitive as far as the standards that were an issue.
It sounds
Page
like
9, Aaron.
It sounds like
Oh, Karen.
crisis is averted, and we can probably just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, I think this is, I think this is, my bad right here. Because I gave y'all the marked up version.
We will,
But I mean, well,
Kimberly.
Karen, it's
we
page
will
9.
remember this.
We'll let it go. That's it.
so my one and only mistake, right? I promise I'll make more. I have made more. All right.
Let's take our wins.
Get them, Aaron, get them.
So Kim, let me ask you something. We are going to
I'll send you a fresh copy.
exclude this article presented with the, I'm just saying, we're going to, this current one, Article 6, we're gonna put this one on hold and bring back the old one and make adjustments as.
I'm gonna take Article 6 and we're just gonna redo Articles. I'm gonna have, I think that's probably, I don't think it'll take us that long. I'll get a time frame on it. But we're going to have a downtown district, and then we'll have standards, separate standards for commercial industrial sites other than downtown district. And we will bring that back and then have the whole thing approved.
Just bring back to downtown.
Just the,
No, we're gonna bring, but we need design standards for commercial and industrial as well.
Taken out until the board gets to the final thing.
And what you may want to think about as you craft this, is maybe introducing overlay districts and maybe having an overlay district for the downtown, or maybe having, an overlay district for the highway, highway business or industrial. So that's a tool that can be used when you want to have specific standards or areas of particular interest, and craft an overlay.
well, I'm actually going back to what Loretta had suggested. Loretta, what did you suggest about Article 6?
She said put it all back.
I said to put it all back as a protection item. We need to protect the downtown area. If you pull it out and then the board approves it with it out, then there's no protection downtown. Max can hang him a big old lighted sign right out front of his building.
A blinking eyeball.
A blinking eyeball. So that's why I'm saying put it all back in, and then after the board passes it, then the committee can meet and start taking out Article 6. If you take it out, if you take 6 out and pass it without it, you are just opening up yourself. I'm telling you.
And if you pass it without it and then try to go back in and add it,
It'll be harder to do.
everybody's going to fight that.
Right, because then it's.
Because this a free-for-all at this point. Let me do what I want. When you come
Yeah.
to pass it, the whole town's gonna come in and fight it.
That is a good point.
And for the
And
record,
it's so much easier to fix something than rewrite it and piss everybody off.
I'm fine with the blinking eyeball, but if you look at Article 6 or the part that we've stricken and taken out of here, I could literally go downtown to my building and put plywood up in front of every window, and there's not a word that anybody can say about it. I mean, it's been completely taken out
Fill
of
up your
the.
planters with trash.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we got three options. We've got take it out, we've got put it in and amend it later, and we've got trusting our town manager to go and take some
Amend it.
time to amend it to fit some of the issues.
And I'm
Those are
good
the
with,
three choices we've talked about.
yeah. I know, I do agree with them. That is a very good point that Jason made. If you take it out and then you try to bring it back, you're probably going to get hit with more contention than you would if you leave it in and adjust it. Yeah.
Let the town board tell you that.
So three options. Which one are y'all most comfortable with? Take it out, put it in, or let Kim and some others work on coming up with a downtown area?
No, that makes sense.
That makes
To
sense.
put it in, like he said, and she said that these things can be amended. So let's get them amended, what we need to do. But leave it in there.
Put it in there, rework it like you were talking about, pass it, then come back and amend it. It's a living, breathing document. It changes by
What you mean,
the day.
We will,
But if you take it
It's
out
little bites,
and then
little bites of
open
the
it for
elephant.
public
Right.
Little
hearing,
bites of the elephant.
Put some back in.
I know you're, Mayor, I know you're saying it won't get done. I'm telling you it will get done. I won't let that fall. We will get, if we put Article 6 back and then y'all pass it as it is, we will go back and we'll have it done. Give me 90 days, we'll get it done.
But on that same note, if we don't put it in and you pass it, that same mindset
It's never
says
coming
it's
back.
never gonna get put back in.
And that's why I was talking about a time
Everything
limit
just
of some
became a
kind.
free-for-all.
Yeah.
People at these public
It-
hearings
oh,
wait
she
until the
put-
last hour
She has the best idea. Yeah.
to say what they wanna change. They're not gonna wait till the last hour when we go to put this back in.
So can we create to the side also a downtown district?
Yeah, I'm definitely, yes, I will do a downtown district. We will have more stringent standards for them. We'll loosen the strings for the others. Yes.
It's going to take about 90 days to do that, in my opinion.
I don't, yeah.
And in the meantime, we need a UDO, guys. There's people that are waiting for y'all.
You know, I just asked a while ago why it was taken out, and I don't understand. And I heard the thing said it was because it would cost the people too much. I had never been talking about downtown. I've been talking about business.
I know, but.
But who just said take out the broken windows? Who said take the broken window, line through the broken window stuff?
Downtown standards was one of the breaking points from that email that we got.
So there's somebody that was making the decision, and I need somebody to convince me why we should take the broken windows thing out of the ordinance.
No, I don't think you should, but I
Well,
think.
but they did take
what
it out.
was, but we were asked to take it out after the meeting.
Who asked you to take it out?
We had a meeting with Dale and William Neighbors.
Mr. Parker.
And that was part of the email from Dale, was building standards, and building standards as a whole. It wasn't just broken windows. So they said, we'll take it out and we'll go back and revise it. But then it still didn't get passed.
So at this point,
I'll
are
be back.
you doing all this, or are we still gonna use?
Oh,
Karen's
I'm
assist
gonna
you?
have Karen's gonna have to help me. I'm not a planner. I mean, and she's got the document. I mean, she and I and the steering committee will have to go back and revisit and fix these things. And we have an interim that will be starting soon, so he'll be a part of that. Huh?
He was not involved. You know, we took out everything on facades. We took out everything on windows. We took out,
Yes, it was all stricken.
so somebody said windows are that's going to ruin the town if,
Somebody said building standards as a whole. It wasn't a specific part of building standards, it was building standards as a whole.
I believe what Aaron, I believe what Aaron was saying was, by the time it came back, there wasn't enough time to revise the entirety of Article 6. So to meet the things Mr. Parker and others wanted, or just Mr. Parker wanted, it was easier for them to strike it so that it would pass the UDO as it was written without Article 6 than try to
Correct.
revise it in the 2 weeks they had to revise it.
Correct.
So they struck the whole thing.
well, there's maybe I'm missing the boat here, but there's a miscommunication here because, you know, we said to start with, one of the reasons why we voted no was because we were rushed.
Mhm.
And we were pushed, and that doesn't ever work with people like that. And so that nobody was in a hurry to take it out. No, we wouldn't never been in a hurry. Just take it out so we can pass something. That's not what we were about. We waited this long, we're going to get it right.
All right, so we're gonna put it back in. And then we'll, all right.
All right, we can't keep doing this back and forth stuff. We're just not getting anything accomplished.
I was trying.
I think
Sorry.
I know what I'm gonna do with
I was
buffers.
pinching him. I was like,
I'll get back.
All
Right. Do you want it back and then bring it forth and then I amend it? Yes, I'll do it I will do a downtown district. Sounds like I got some that say you want to put it back in and pass it, and I'll go back and do the amendment, or you want to pass it with the downtown district. Option 2 or 3 that Lawrence gave y'all.
I want you to put 6 back in.
Put it all back
Right, and then amend it
after it's passed.
after it's passed.
Okay, so that's one. Cassandra, Dean, Max.
I'd vote to put it back in and then explain to the board why we're going to take out what we're going to take out.
Okay, so put it back in, pass it, and then amend it.
And tell us why we need to take out whatever. And before we actually really pass it, we'll take that out.
He's saying,
Put it back in and then go through each section and explain
That's right.
Explain why
That's right.
Okay.
And I think if you do a downtown district and apply Article 6, and then take some of this stuff out for,
Business for commercial and industrial. Yes. I got you.
And we can always, once it all gets done, we can change it. When the Johnston County gets theirs done, we can say, hey, I-1 or industrial one, whatever class that is, and we want it to mirror Johnston County. So we can still do that.
Yeah.
But,
You
yeah.
need to
Once
look
it's
at
done.
what's in there and take out what you want to take out and leave the rest there. Don't go take all out or put all back in. You gotta make some sense for what you wind up with, and we're not making any sense to that.
But Mayor, she's gonna amend the things that you have concerns about then once it passes.
Amendment before it passes.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if we pass it, put number 6 back in and pass it as is, the way it is, when she amends it, then we can discuss what we need to do.
You didn't
I
get
agree.
to talk,
You agree?
did you?
So we got those two things. Is there anything else?
I want to make sure, I said the last time that if the industrial questions that I brought up from Mr. Parker, basically, in this thing, they were addressed, and we had some, make sure we were competitive with our neighbors, I'd vote for it. I just want to make sure if you could figure out, take each one of those lines and say they addressed it in this section 106B, and make sure it was addressed.
Okay, I can do that.
So Ken, what time frame are we looking at all of this?
Let me get with Karen and I'll get you, let me and her sit down and come up with a time, because I want to bring the steering committee back in it too. Let us get a timeline and I'll get it to the board. I mean, it'll be as quickly as I can make it happen. Keeping in mind that it will have to go for a public hearing.
It will also need to go for planning board for their review.
Correct.
Or review and action.
Correct.
You finished, Kim?
I-
Is everybody finished?
Does anybody else have anything to say that's not on, that's planning board, steering committee? Y'all feel good about where we are? Does the board feel good about where we are?
I mean, my only question is if we do the changes like you were saying, and it goes to the board again, are we gonna get approval?
Can you answer that question?
We are adjourned.